Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the frame rails of your rig. We're going to talk about what they are and how to modify them safely. And we're also going to kind of pull back the curtain on how our build series is going to progress and some of the visuals that we're going to use throughout the series. So join us and we'll get started. Okay, so here we are in SOLIDWORKS. This is a CAD design software that I'm going to use to model the school bus and basically create a virtual copy of our build, and we'll progress this virtual build at the same rate we progress our build series. So as we build like the underbay, I'll model the underbay construction. So then as we move on to like the roof raise, I'll model the roof raise in action and how I actually lifted it. And this will be very useful as a visual to supplement all of the recordings I did. Here we have a basic chassis of a school bus. It's actually, I modeled these two frame rails after our bus, and I was able to download some wonderful models of the front axle and suspension and the rear axle and suspension, along with the powertrain. So with these frame rails, there's two of them, one on either side, and they are the backbone of your bus. They hold all of the weight and transfer it to the axles. They are a high tensile strength steel that has been heat treated and stress relieved. They are actually somewhat flexible, and you can almost think of them as something similar to a sword, like a katana, where the steel is tempered in such a way so it is strong but yet flexible, and when it fails it will normally be very brittle and crack. So that's fairly typical for most frame rails, and that's a good way of thinking about them. So now let's go on to the best practices of what you can do and can't do to these frame rails to avoid making them fail prematurely. So when it comes to any modifications with the frame rails, there's pretty much a rule of thumb. That is that you don't heat, weld, cut, drill, or notch the frame rails unless you have very specific circumstances. So the first and probably most important rule is not to drill into the top or bottom flange of the frame rail, and also not to drill within 1.5 inches of the frame rail flanges on the web. And the reasons for this is the top and bottom flanges carry the most stress, and as you move towards the center of the frame rail web, that's where you'll have neutral stress for the most part. If you are drilling a hole, check the backside first, because you might be drilling into air lines or hydraulic lines or electrical lines, and you don't want to do that. So always check the backside of what you're drilling, because from the outside they normally look very empty and there's nothing, looks like there isn't anything behind there, but there's normally a bunch of stuff running in the frame rails. Okay, the next rule is to not drill within 2 inches of another hole or joint in the frame rail. The joints would be a welded seam. And the reason for this is you don't want to have a spot where a crack can start propagating, and if you put holes together too closely, you'll end up causing a spot where a crack will more likely occur. And for the same reason, you also want to drill no larger than a 3/4 inch diameter hole, and you always want to size the hole that you're drilling to be as tight to the bolt size as possible, so you're not weakening the frame more than you have to. If you're going to use a bolt, use a flanged frame rail bolt that has a shoulder on it so you don't have any threads touching the frame rail, and the flange on the bolt will actually spread the load out and provide better clamping force. If you don't have a actual frame rail bolt, then you can use a heavy fender washer or washer. You also want to deburr and paint any holes you drill in the frame to prevent any rusting from occurring. The safest way to attach anything to your frame rail, and the way that I would recommend it, is to use a U-bolt, which is basically a big U-shaped bolt that clamps down on the frame rail, and you could mount to that bolt instead of to the actual frame. It's basically just like a big clamp. If you need a threaded hole in the frame rail, so you have clearance issues, like I said, you might have lines running on the other side, you can use what's called a riv nut, which is basically a rivet, but it has threads on the inside of it that you can use later on. It's a specialized tool, but that would be a way to add threaded holes to a frame rail in a safe manner. Another very important aspect of these frame rails is to inspect them before you purchase your bus, and probably once or twice a year to check for cracks or giant rust pitting in the frames, as these will be serious issues that you should get fixed right away or preclude you from buying the bus in the first place. So you may be asking why this is important, and I think it's for three major reasons. The first reason is for safety. You're taking your life into your hands when you're modifying the frame rail of your vehicle. It is the most important structural member that binds everything together. You don't want it breaking in half or something like that when you're going down the road 70 miles an hour and you're putting yourself, anybody who's in your bus or vehicle, and anybody around you in danger because you just decided to drill wherever you wanted or cut a hole in your frame rail. The second reason is for insurance. If you were to have something like what happened in the first example, if your frame rail broke while going down the road, you don't want to also have layered on top of that your insurance company rejecting your claim because you did something really dumb with your vehicle. I don't know exactly, it depends on your insurance and all that if they're going to be fussy about it, but you just don't want to take the risk when it comes to insurance also. And then the last reason is if you're ever thinking about reselling this, whether it be a bus or truck or whatever, the first thing someone's going to look at on these big vehicles is the frame rail to see what the integrity of the frame rail is like and see if you've jeopardized the integrity of the frame rail. So if I were looking at a vehicle and I saw a giant hole cut in the side of the frame rail or something drilled into the flange, that would be immediately something that would make me walk away from the vehicle. So you just don't want that to happen. So that's pretty much the reasons why I think it's important that we talk about these frame rails. So when it comes to the bus build series, my plan is to incorporate the SOLIDWORKS model into pretty much every video. I tried my hardest to film as much as I could, but there are certain seasons during the build or when I was really rushing to get something done that I just didn't have time to film. And the SOLIDWORKS model will fill in the gaps. It'll give people a better visual understanding of what is going on. I can slice through the model and show cross sections and different views that you wouldn't get with the whole bus just being filmed. So I think it'll be a cool visual for you guys, and it will kind of it'll progress at the same rate as our videos progress in the build series. And then it will also be a really cool, basically an as-built for the bus. So if you guys have questions, you can just reference the videos and see the model. If there's enough interest in it, I might put it up on a future website eventually, if you guys are really wanting to download the model and actually look at it, because there are viewers that are free and you can actually view the model when it's all done. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. We'll see how it progresses. I think it's going to be a cool visual, it's kind of unique, and will be something fun for you guys. So the build series will progress basically how I ended up building the bus. We will start from the outside, we'll do the underbay, do the roof raise, we'll get it all ready for paint, we'll do the painting, final assembly, get it all waterproofed, and then we will work our way through the inside of the bus and the utilities. So that's kind of how the build will progress. I'll use as much footage as I have and we'll augment it with this awesome SOLIDWORKS model. So I want to thank you all for sticking around to the end of the video. This is a ton of work for me to produce, but all I'm asking is that you hit that like button and subscribe to catch all the upcoming build videos. Thanks again, and I'll catch you on the next video.